The movie opens at a gruesome crime scene, where police discover 3 bodies inside a house. The victims are an elderly couple who owned the home and their servant. All 3 died in horrifying ways, with wounds caused by guns, knives, and other weapons. But something about the scene doesn't make sense. There are no signs that an intruder broke into the house, murdered them, and escaped. Instead, all the evidence suggests that the victims were desperately trying to get out, but never made it. Sheriff Berg is already disturbed by what he's seeing when he's called into the basement. The walls are completely covered in blood, but that's not what shocks him the most. Hidden beneath the dirt is a 4th body, the body of a young woman, who appears to be half buried in the ground. What makes this even stranger is that, despite the blood covering every inch of the basement, her body is completely spotless. The other 3 victims are covered in blood, clearly explain how they died. But this woman doesn't have a single cut, bruise, or scratch. Even though she was buried underground, there's not a speck of dirt or blood on her. She doesn't seem to belong at this crime scene at all. Investigators also failed to find any connection between her and the homeowners. With no identification and no way to determine who she is, the police label her as Jane Doe. That's the standard name, given to an unidentified female body. If the victim were male, the name would be John Doe. The story then shifts to the local morgue, run by Tommy Tilden. The morgue sits directly beneath his house, because this has been the family's profession for generations. Tommy inherited it from his father, who inherited it from his own father. Now Tommy is training his son Austin to eventually take over. The only problem is that Austin has a habit of jumping to conclusions. They're performing an autopsy on the body of a man who died in a house fire. At first glance, Austin assumes the victim inhaled smoke and died from the fire. But Tommy immediately proves him wrong. He points out a fracture in the man's skull, explaining that the victim likely slipped in the kitchen, suffered a fatal head injury, and died before the fire ever started. That's the lesson Tommy wants Austin to remember. Their job isn't to guess based on appearances. Their job is to examine every detail and uncover the real cause of death. Watching them work is unsettling in its own way. Cheerful music plays in the background while they perform an autopsy, making it obvious they've become completely desensitized to death. It's simply part of their everyday lives. That numbness has followed them outside of work as well. Tommy's wife passed away 2 years ago, yet neither father nor son has truly talked about her since. Austin still carries his emotions, but Tommy has buried his so deeply that he barely reacts anymore. Whenever Austin mentions his mother, he secretly hopes his father will show even the slightest hint of sadness. But Tommy never does. He has become emotionally unreachable. When the day's work is finished, Tommy steps outside for a cigarette. The morgue has 2 exits. One elevator leads upstairs into the house, while a basement door opens directly outside. The moment Tommy leaves, Austin quickly stores the burned body away, because he's supposed to meet his girlfriend Emma for a date. They also have a cat named Stanley, who spends most of her time crawling through the building's ventilation system. Today she caught another mouse, and Austin casually tosses it into the trash. Just as he's about to turn off the lights, Emma surprises him by showing up downstairs. She immediately asks to see the bodies. Austin refuses at first, warning her that some things are better left unseen, because once you've seen them, you can never forget them. He also insists Tommy would never allow it. To his surprise, Tommy gives her permission. There are currently 3 bodies in the morgue. The first is the burned victim they've already examined. The second is a woman whose eyes and mouth have been sewn shut. Emma takes one look and shakes her head. No, not this one. Show me the other. Even after Tommy told her to pick one, she's still being picky. Austin opens another drawer, revealing a corpse with a massive hole in its face. At first glance, it looks like the victim committed suicide. Tommy corrects them once again. The gunshot happened after the person was already dead. Emma naturally asks why anyone would do something like that. Tommy simply answers that discovering why is the police department's job. Their responsibility is only to determine how someone died. That's exactly where Austin keeps making mistakes. Instead of focusing on the medical facts, he always gets distracted trying to solve the mystery behind them. Emma also notices a small bell tied around the body's foot. Tommy explains that many years ago, doctors couldn't always tell whether someone was truly dead or simply unconscious. Families tied bells to corpses before burial so that if the person woke up or moved, the bell would ring and save them from being buried alive. Even today, Tommy still follows that old tradition. Just as Austin and Emma are about to leave, Sheriff Berg arrives with Jane Doe. One look at the sheriff's face tells Austin this case is different. Tommy tells him to go enjoy his evening because he'll handle the autopsy himself. But Austin can't walk away. He tells Emma to come back around 11 so they can still go on their date. This moment reveals something important about Austin. He acts like he's committed to carrying on the family business, but the truth is completely different. He doesn't want this life. He wants to leave this town and start over somewhere else. The only reason he stayed was because his mother died. He couldn't bring himself to leave Tommy alone. Even after 2 years, he still hasn't found the courage to tell his father the truth. He doesn't want to inherit the morgue. He feels trapped underground and dreams of escaping. After Emma leaves, Austin heads back downstairs, where Sheriff Berg explains the situation. The moment Jane's body enters the building, Stanley begins growling aggressively. Tommy immediately sends the cat outside. The sheriff explains that they couldn't identify the victim. She has no ID, and even her fingerprints don't match anyone in the system. Nobody knows who she is or where she came from. His working theory is that the servant murdered Jane and tried to bury her in the basement. Then the homeowners unexpectedly returned, leading to a confrontation that ended with all 3 of them dead. That's the story he'll give the media. The only thing he still needs is Jane's official cause of death. Once Tommy gives him that answer, the sheriff plans to fill in the rest himself. He gives them until morning before leaving. Confident they'll finish quickly, Tommy and Austin begin the autopsy. As the camera starts recording, Jane Doe's examination officially begins. A radio quietly plays in the background, reporting that the weather will remain clear for the next several days. The autopsy starts with an external examination. Within minutes, both father and son realize something is terribly wrong. Jane's body is flawless. No bruises, no cuts, no injuries, no blood. When they examine her eyes, they're cloudy, suggesting she died several days ago. But the rest of her body tells a completely different story. Her muscles aren't stiff. Her blood hasn't settled. Those signs indicate she died only recently. One half of her body suggests one timeline, while the other half suggests another. Determining her actual time of death becomes impossible. Then they discover even stranger details. Her waist is unusually narrow, almost as if she wore a corset for years. Her wrists and ankles are completely shattered internally, yet her skin shows no damage whatsoever. Her fingernails and hair contain traces of peat moss, formed from decaying vegetation, suggesting she was once buried in peat-rich soil. Tommy explains that this type of soil is common in northern regions like New England, but not anywhere around here. Then they examine her mouth. The moment they open it, both men freeze. Her tongue has been brutally cut out. Tommy begins considering the possibility that she's the victim of human trafficking. Her wrists and ankles may have been tightly restrained until the bones shattered, while her tongue was removed to keep her silent. He's seen a case with similar injuries once before, nearly 15 years ago. Notice how Jane's condition slowly pulls Tommy away from his own professional rules. He's no longer focused only on determining the cause of death. He's starting to search for the reason behind it. From the outside, Jane looks peaceful, almost untouched. But every layer they uncover reveals unimaginable torture. The deeper they look, the more painful her story becomes. As Austin photographs her mouth, he suddenly notices something impossible. Jane's nose moves. A thin stream of blood begins flowing from one nostril. Then a live fly crawls out, flies across the room, and dies after hitting the heater. Tommy also discovers that one of Jane's teeth had been pulled out long ago. Hidden inside the empty socket is an old piece of cloth, which they carefully seal in an evidence bag to send to the lab. Outside, thunder begins rumbling. A violent storm is approaching, even though the radio had just predicted several days of clear weather. When Tommy continues examining her body, he finds severe internal injuries inside her reproductive organs. Someone deliberately tortured her in ways almost too horrific to imagine. Austin immediately starts forming another theory. Tommy stops him once again. So far, we've only examined the outside, he reminds him. The internal examination hasn't even begun. Don't jump to conclusions. Now comes the next stage. The autopsy truly begins. The instant Tommy picks up his scalpel, the storm intensifies. The lights flicker. Static fills the radio. For a brief moment, the sound of a woman screaming comes through the speakers. Then, without warning, an old song begins playing by itself. Open up your heart and let the sunshine in. Austin quickly changes the station. As Tommy makes the first incision across Jane's body, blood suddenly pours out. He's seen this happen before in fresh bodies where pressure builds up after death. Austin quickly collects the blood and places it in a freezer. Moments later, the blood mysteriously leaks back out on its own, flowing across the floor exactly the way it flowed from Jane's body. Tommy removes Jane's ribcage. Inside, her lungs are completely black, as though they had been burned. Yet her skin doesn't show a single burn mark. Her heart is covered with cuts. So are several other organs. Internally, it's obvious she suffered repeated stab wounds. But externally, her skin remains perfect. No cuts, no scars, nothing. It makes absolutely no sense. Anyone looking at the damage inside her body would expect her exterior to be completely destroyed. Instead, she looks untouched. So how could someone inflict that much internal damage without leaving even a single mark on the outside? Neither Tommy nor Austin has an answer. The only thing they know for certain is that whoever did this wanted Jane to suffer for as long as possible. As the two stand there trying to process the impossible, the lights flicker again. A strange noise echoes from the hallway. Austin goes to investigate and briefly catches the reflection of a mysterious figure in a hallway mirror. Back in the autopsy room, Tommy accidentally slices his wrist on one of Jane's exposed ribs. Meanwhile, Austin follows another noise into the office. Something is moving inside the ventilation system. He looks up and briefly sees what appears to be someone crawling through the vent. Startled, he falls backward. Tommy rushes over after hearing the crash. When Austin looks again, he realizes it isn't a person. It's Stanley. The poor cat is trapped inside the vent, badly injured and clearly suffering. Not wanting her to endure any more pain, Tommy quietly breaks her neck, ending her misery. He places her body into the cremation furnace and watches as it burns. In that moment, we realize Tommy isn't as emotionless as he pretends to be. Stanley reminded him of his late wife, and losing the cat clearly hurts him. Even so, he refuses to let Austin see any emotion on his face. When Austin returns to Jane's body, a fly resting on her skin suddenly takes off. Then, without anyone touching it, one of the morgue drawers slowly slides open by itself. The meaning seems obvious, but Austin ignores it. He quietly shuts the drawer and goes back to work. The next step was examining the stomach. As soon as they cut it open, a jimsonweed flower fell out. Jimsonweed is a powerful paralyzing plant that grows in New England. Tommy had already pointed out that the peat found under Jane's fingernails also comes from that same region. That could only mean one thing. Before she was tortured, Jane had been forced to eat this flower, so she would be completely paralyzed. At the same time, the radio reported that the storm had suddenly become much worse. Heavy rain was pouring outside, even though no one had expected it. Hearing that, Austin suggested they finish the rest of the autopsy in the morning, but Tommy refused. "If you want to leave, go ahead. Once I start a job, I don't stop until it's finished." Austin stayed. If he had wanted to leave, he would have gone with Emma earlier. They searched deeper inside the stomach and found a small cloth pouch. Inside it was Jane's missing tooth. The thread they had found in her mouth belonged to this same pouch. Roman numerals were stitched onto the fabric, and in the center was a strange symbol that looked like something used in an ancient ritual. Austin slowly pieced everything together. First, Jane's hands and feet had been tied down or broken. Then her tongue had been cut out. After that, she was forced to swallow the jimsonweed flower, leaving her fully paralyzed. Her tooth was then pulled out, placed inside the cloth pouch, and forced back into her mouth so she would swallow it. Only then did the real torture begin. Every cut and stab wound inside her body was inflicted while she was still alive. And when even that wasn't enough, they burned her alive like some kind of human sacrifice. Everything was starting to make sense, except for one impossible question. If she had suffered all of that, why was the outside of her body completely untouched? Maybe the ritual had something to do with it. Meanwhile, the radio kept warning everyone that flooding was approaching the town. Then out of nowhere, someone whispered, "You're not going anywhere." At that exact moment, the same mysterious song started playing again. Now even Austin was terrified. Tommy, however, couldn't stop thinking about Jane's skin. If they wanted answers, the skin itself had to tell them. He carefully sliced it open. The second the skin folded back, both men froze. On the inside of her skin were the exact same ritual symbols they had seen on the cloth pouch. Now the biggest mystery had become even bigger. How could symbols possibly exist on the inside of someone's skin? Neither of them had an answer. And this was only the beginning. Without warning, every body drawer in the morgue slid open by itself. Before either of them could react, every light exploded. Darkness swallowed the room. Austin quickly switched on his flashlight. Jane's body was still there, but the other 3 corpses were gone. For the first time, even Tommy admitted it. "We need to get out of here." The emergency generator had turned on, but it wasn't producing enough power for the elevator. They rushed toward another exit, only to discover that a huge tree had crashed into the door during the storm. Now they were completely trapped underground. There was no signal on either of their phones. They hurried into the office and tried using the landline. Austin called the sheriff directly. The call disconnected before anyone answered. Silence filled the building. Then, they heard the faint ringing of the small bells traditionally tied around a corpse's feet. Austin slowly looked beneath the office door. A dead body was standing outside. It was trying to open the door. Both of them shoved furniture against it as fast as they could. Only then did the knocking stop. A few moments later, Tommy walked into the bathroom. Behind the shower curtain, he noticed a shadow. He slowly pulled the curtain back. No one was there. He finally relaxed. Then suddenly something grabbed him from behind and yanked him inside. The bathroom door slammed shut on its own. Austin desperately pounded on the door, while Tommy was thrown violently around inside. We never clearly see what attacks him. The only thing visible is a pair of cloudy white eyes, exactly like Jane's. Strangely, whatever attacked him didn't stay. It simply opened the bathroom door by itself and disappeared. It also unlocked the office door without touching it. That proved one thing. This wasn't one of the corpses. It was something else. Something invisible. Maybe it was the same figure Austin had seen reflected in the hallway mirror. Whatever it was, it had just shown them one thing. Blocking doors wasn't going to save them. Tommy was badly injured. While treating his wounds, Austin finally said what both of them had been thinking. Jane is doing this. She's not just a dead body anymore. Tommy immediately rejected the idea. That's impossible. Austin looked at him. Everything we've seen tonight was impossible. We crossed that line a long time ago. Then he made a decision. We have to destroy the body. We have to burn it. They returned to the autopsy table. The organs they had removed earlier had completely rotted. Yet while they were still inside Jane's body, they had looked perfectly healthy. Neither man wasted another second. They carried Jane toward the cremation room. Just then the door slammed shut and locked itself. Austin kicked it as hard as he could. The instant he did, he saw the corpse of the woman whose eyes and mouth had been sewn shut. Standing on the other side, there was no way out. Austin soaked Jane's body with chemicals and set it on fire right there. But the flames behaved unnaturally. Within seconds, they spread across the room, destroying everything. The cameras, the autopsy photographs, every piece of evidence they had collected, everything proving what they had discovered was gone. When Tommy finally managed to extinguish the fire, every bit of evidence had been destroyed. Everything except Jane. The body they had tried to burn hadn't been damaged at all. Not a burn mark. Not a scratch. Her skin wasn't just skin anymore. It was like armor. Even her organs remained completely untouched. They still hadn't destroyed the body. But one thing had changed. The elevator suddenly started working. The locked doors also unlocked. Both men rushed inside. Then, the little bell started ringing again. The corpse with the massive hole in its face slowly walked toward them. They jumped into the elevator, but the door stopped halfway and refused to close. The body kept getting closer. Tommy grabbed an axe and with everything he had, swung it straight into the figure's neck. The next second, his entire world fell apart. It wasn't a corpse. It was Emma. Austin had told her to come later that night. And remember, earlier she had jokingly pointed at that exact corpse with her key. Now both men had seen Emma as that corpse. Father and son stood there completely shattered. The elevator finally started moving again. Tommy pulled Austin inside. But as soon as the doors shut, the elevator stopped once more. Now they were trapped again. Tommy's body was already covered in bruises and deep injuries. As they sat there waiting, Tommy spoke about Austin's mother for the first time. He said he used to call her Ray because she was the sunshine of his life. She always smiled. She always looked happy. Neither of them realized how much pain she was hiding inside. Tommy still blamed himself for never seeing it. For the first time, we understand something important. He isn't a cold-hearted man. He only pretends to be. Meanwhile, Jane somehow activated the cremation furnace. Smoke quickly filled the building. Austin suddenly realized something. If Jane wanted us dead, she could have killed us the moment we started cutting her open. So why hasn't she? There had to be a reason. Then it hit him. She wasn't trying to stop them from living. She was trying to stop them from learning the truth. If we discover how she died, maybe we can stop all of this. They escaped the elevator and wandered through the thick smoke. A corpse suddenly attacked Tommy, slicing deep wounds across his body before disappearing. As Tommy collapsed, that mysterious shadow appeared once again. It slowly walked toward him. Just as it reached him, it vanished. Austin rushed over, helped his father, and dragged him back into the autopsy room. After barricading the door, they continued the examination. They opened Jane's skull. Her brain was completely perfect. Every other organ had been destroyed, yet her brain looked untouched. Tommy removed a tissue sample and examined it. Both men froze. The brain cells were still alive. Biologically, Jane was alive. That's why they couldn't determine her cause of death. She had never actually died. But how was that possible? They had cut her open, removed her heart, opened her stomach, taken apart her skull. Yet somehow, she was still alive, which meant something even more horrifying. She had felt every single cut, every stab, every incision, everything they had done to her during the autopsy. That was why she had been fighting back. She wasn't seeking revenge because they opened her body. She was trying to stop the pain. Neither man could believe it. Searching desperately for answers, they looked again at the cloth found inside her stomach. It contained a Bible reference, Leviticus 20:27. The verse says that anyone who communicates with spirits should be put to death because they are considered a witch. The cloth also carried another important clue. The year 1693. Everything suddenly made sense. That was the year of the Salem witch trials in New England. The same place where Jimson weed grows. The same place where peat is commonly found. Now they finally understood. Jane had been falsely accused of being a witch during the Salem witch trials. Like countless innocent women, she had been sentenced to die. But someone had gone much further. Judging by her beauty, it's easy to imagine that some of her tormentors took out their own hatred and frustration on her. She was paralyzed. A ritual was performed on her. The cloth pouch was forced down her throat. She was brutally tortured. Then she was burned alive. But something went horribly wrong. By accusing an innocent girl of being a witch and performing that ritual, they accidentally turned her into exactly what they feared. An immortal witch. Maybe the ritual was supposed to cleanse her, or maybe it was meant to keep her alive long enough to suffer even more. Either way, it failed. Even centuries later, Jane remained trapped in the exact condition they left her in. Still alive, still paralyzed, still suffering. Every time someone cut into her body, she felt it all over again. That meant Tommy and Austin had unknowingly repeated the same torture. Jane wasn't trying to kill them immediately. She wanted them to experience her suffering first. Everything happening to Tommy proved it. Once the ritual backfired, Jane probably hunted down the people responsible. The survivors must have buried her as far away as possible beneath that old house. Years later, construction workers uncovered her grave. From that moment on, everyone who crossed her path suffered the same fate. She had already claimed 3 victims. Now Tommy and Austin were next. She wasn't targeting specific people. She simply passed her suffering on to anyone who found her. That had become her curse. Her ritual. Tommy realized something. Unlike everyone else, they had seen the truth. They had witnessed Jane's pain from the inside. Maybe there was only one way to end it. He offered himself as a sacrifice to save Austin. The moment he did, the lights began flickering again. Tommy's body twisted violently. His wrists and ankles snapped. Invisible blades tore through his flesh. Smoke poured from his lungs. And while Tommy suffered, Jane healed. Her blood flowed back into her body. Her skin repaired itself. Her broken bones rejoined. Her lungs became whole again. She was transferring all of her pain into Tommy. He couldn't survive it. Within moments, Tommy's eyes turned cloudy, just like Jane's had been. At the same time, Jane's eyes became completely normal. She was finally healed. Tommy tried reaching for a knife. The ritual still required one final step. His tongue had to be cut out. But Austin wouldn't let him finish it. Unable to watch his father suffer any longer, Austin stabbed him himself. Tommy died. The ritual remained incomplete. His sacrifice had been wasted. At that exact moment, the lights came back on. The radio started playing normally again. Outside, they heard the sheriff calling. Austin rushed to the door. It still wouldn't open. The sheriff shouted that the fallen tree had already been cleared. So why was the door still sealed? Then something even stranger happened. The sheriff casually began singing the same song they had been hearing all night. Open up your heart and let the sunshine in. Suddenly, Tommy's body appeared in front of Austin. Terrified, Austin stumbled backward, crashed through the railing, and fell to his death, breaking his neck. The next morning, the police arrived. They found another impossible crime scene. 3 bodies. No signs that anyone had entered. Only evidence that the victims had desperately tried to escape. And lying among them, Jane's body, completely untouched. The sheriff looked at the scene in horror. Finally, he gave one order. Get this body out of here. Send it to Virginia University. Just get it out of my county. As you can see, Jane's body is once again flawless. Not a single mark remains. This time, however, her eyes are cloudy again. Tommy's eyes are no longer cloudy. The other 3 corpses are back inside their drawers. Every light in the morgue works perfectly. Nothing appears damaged. The only thing missing is the evidence. Every bit of it burned away. Then the radio announces something shocking. Today is the 4th straight day of sunshine. There was never a storm. Everything they experienced that night was part of Jane's curse. Finally, as Jane's body is loaded into the transport van, the same old song begins playing once more through the radio. At the same time, Jane's toe twitches. The tiny bell rings, and with that, the movie comes to an end.